James. How are
Hello,
you?
Amy. Okay.
I'm waiting for us to actually show up on YouTube because there's a delay, but so we'll see as it gets set up here. And then of course I get the sound in my ear each time we go on too, so I get to mute that lovely thing, and then we are set. There we are. Okay, so people will be joining us here in a couple. Let's wait till we can see a few people coming on in. They get over to my YouTube channel and then, okay, yeah, we got a couple people who are coming on right now, which is good. Welcome, whoever has just landed at my page and at our little live streaming. How are you, James, this morning?
I am well. Good morning. Buongiorno. Bonjour.
So I have a big reveal here. Are you ready for this?
Yeah. Whoa. Big reveal. I am. Lay it on me.
Right here. I have a cup of coffee with me.
Now you can start to live like a human being again.
Maybe. I mean, actually, you know, this is more for stunt effect. I don't know how much of it I'm actually going to drink during this show, but I figured today is about the day that I'm ready to do it. So I may as well take the leap and have a little.
So it's coffee with butter in it?
It is not butter. And this is the big news. Milk and I, as you know, have had to break up finally after a long and torturous
it was a rough breakup.
It's still a rough breakup. I'm still very sad about it. Yeah. So I had to break up with Milk. No, this is not just black coffee though. So what I've got in here is some collagen protein, some coconut cream, and a little bit of MCT oil. So that's what I've got in here. And that and all my other goodies, I still have a blog post that I owe people that I'm going to be posting everything that I'm doing and stuff. We will talk a little bit about the carnivorish stuff today, but it's going to be more of a philosophical bent. It's not going to be autobiographical as much. If you're interested in more of like really the nitty gritty details, you're going to have to either wait at my blog, which is at don'tletitgo.com. I'm going to have a whole post in which I think the title is going to be what I'm describing myself as, reluctantly carnivorish. And the philosophical angle is something that I'm going to get into hopefully with you here today, James. And I know that you have not dove in yet to any of this keto carnivore stuff yet, right? Or have you?
A little bit. I try to. I really do try to reduce the carbs as much as possible, but I have not completely abandoned carbs, I have to confess.
Okay. So we'll talk a little bit about it with respect to you. I'm still proselytizing to you a little bit, and this is one of my opportunities to do that. So I'm not going to just squander the opportunity to proselytize to you personally.
Proselytize away.
but you know, mostly in terms of my kind of blow by blow, like what's going on and stuff. You can find that if you're interested in that kind of discussion during my weekly hangouts with my supporters. And I did have a hangout this week where I talked about the fallout from my breakup with Milk. I was so happy last week. The guy had been consulting. He's saying, yeah, try a little bit of cream. We're like, oh, I get to drink cream again. This is great. Maybe it'll go well this time. And it did not go well. And I ended up, and if you become one of my supporters, you'll get the video from this week. And you guys, I don't wear foundation like on anything. Okay. Like if I go on Tucker, which I haven't been for over a year, and I hope I will again, probably at some point I will be, but I haven't been for so long. They put some foundation on me, right? But I don't put foundation on it all. So kind of like what you see is what it is. And it's still clearing a little bit, but I had like these blotches of red little breakout and stuff here from the Milk. And it wasn't terrible, but it was definitely noticeable. And the light that I had at the time.
You and Milk really do not get along.
No. And as if I look back on it, we never really have, or at least not since I was a baby. And typically that's what happens to people. You lose lactose tolerance, at least as you get older. And also the proteins in milk, the caseins are not even, anyway, so it broke up. And so I did not get my blood work this week because I figured there's still a lot of inflammation going on. It takes milk 2 or 3 weeks to get out of your system.
Whoa.
So I'm just, laying low. But the details on the blow by blow, we will reserve to my hangouts with the supporters who want presumably want more details, and then they'll get more details. But I want to take a philosophical bent on this today.
Okay.
Why is Amy calling herself reluctantly carnivore-ish? And can I draw a parallel between approaches to this carnivore thing and the immigration issue? I've got something on that.
See, it's one of those, tests. Can you integrate this disparate thing with this disparate thing? It's one of those psychopistemological
concepts
tests.
in a hat or whatever. Remember the game that supposedly
Exactly.
Rand used to play, right?
Right.
But this is an analogy that I just thought of in the last day or so as I've been kind of going, and I'm carnivore-ish. Right now, my diet consists of meat, eggs, some kind of fat that I'm trying to figure out exactly what fats I'm cooking my stuff in. Right now, it's olive oil.
Not beef tallow.
Beef tallow. And then the pork, right? I figured, okay, I love bacon. We all love bacon.
Yeah.
Pork fat, that'll be great, right? I'll cook my beef and pork. I didn't like it. If I cook it up in olive oil, I'm a perfectly happy camper. So we'll see. Anyway, it's all a work in progress, but I keep getting closer and closer to good goals. And so I'm happy with that. But yeah, why reluctant, and what parallels can we draw to immigration? And then I also want to connect it to what Rob Wolf has been calling our sick care system, which one of the reasons I think I'm in this spot is because of our sick care system. And one of the reasons that so many of us are having to grope at dietary fixes to the problems, which actually are the correct fix, but why do we have to grope at it? Why aren't the physicians with us by our side such that we have to go ask Mr. Google all the time, or hope that we have connections with wonderful, brilliant people like Rob Lowe, who can refer you to a Chris Kresser, who then you read Norm Robillard and you follow this rabbit trail? Why do I have to follow a rabbit trail to get well? As opposed to having right? So I'm going to connect it with the socialized medicine. And then I can, after we do this, ask you the question, because what we might be looking at now is Biden versus Trump.
Right.
And with the integrations that I've been making in the last few days, the healthcare system, the sick care system, has its ambling along, is an important value to try to preserve if we can through the next election. And where's the right direction to go with that? If it's going to be Biden versus Trump, this is another way to think about that horrible choice that you might want to make at the ballot box. So there's that. Coronavirus, we could start off with, though, if you want. What's your latest thoughts? I've got 3 different stories. We could talk about it, but what's your latest thoughts on coronavirus?
Well, we're getting a lot of testing materials out there, and that was really the thing that was, because we really can't know how deadly the disease is unless we get a good grip on people who've had light minor instances of the disease and compare and get the numbers on that. The fatalities on this may be much smaller than 2 or 3%, and we won't know that till we get a bunch of people tested. And so that's good news that they're getting the testing equipment out there.
Well, okay, but they're not following, I think, great procedures with respect to this everywhere. So for example, I have a friend of a friend who is in Israel. And apparently there, if you're not super sick, you're just going to be told to quarantine and not be tested. And so then you say, okay, well, maybe that's okay for that person because that person isn't really sick. And then that person is taking the precautions from there on out. But what about if that person has already exposed other people? And so then you have less knowledge that you can share with people that you've been in contact with before you've realized maybe that you could potentially be a carrier, right?
Exactly.
So that's an issue. Where they are apparently doing really widespread, high volume testing is in South Korea.
Right.
And yeah,
exactly.
And that is a beautiful thing. So apparently, I mean, I don't know how many they've tested now. I was reading the story the other day, and they had tested 140,000 people there. And so they had a lot better handle on, the fatality rate, for example, if you take the whole population into account, because the larger the numbers, and particularly the larger the numbers where you're not favoring people who are more sick, then you're going to get a better idea of what the rate is. So whereas they used to say it was a 1% fatality rate, now they're saying maybe 0.6, which is still, I mean, I don't wish this on
No, of
anybody. And
course.
you would, so, but you're getting
Point
more
six
realistic
of
numbers.
1%, when we're talking about millions of people who are going to get this. It's
Yes.
still a big number.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And that is true. It's probably millions of people that are going to get it. But it does give you a better handle on it.
Yeah, the on the other side we have the fatality. How deadly is it? How bad is it? And on the other side, how infectious is it? And it appears to be pretty darn infectious. I think
Yeah.
it's spreading rapidly, and
Well,
it's
okay,
true.
so here's the question. So one of the other stories that I have to talk about was one Benjamin had posted about that they had said in Italy there had been cases apparently since December,
Wow, yeah.
but they hadn't been detecting them. So do we actually know how rapidly it's spreading, or is it just that it's been spreading for a lot longer than anybody thinks? What do you know about its spread? Because early on, and Robert Garmong, who we interviewed in China, it was a good source for some of the initial information about this, right?
Right.
And I remember that it supposedly can't live on surfaces like hard surfaces longer than 15 minutes. And 6 feet is a safe distance. And that the incubation period is maybe 10 days or something.
Right.
Has any of that changed as far as you know?
Not as far as I know. Exactly.
Okay.
All that data is still what the CDC, I think, is still telling us. So
Kara Peikoff at LeapsMag apparently has commissioned a piece with a microbiologist who plans to answer a lot of these types of questions on
excellent.
her LeapsMag
Yeah.
online magazine
Excellent.
on Monday. So I'm looking forward to some of those answers. But I'm not convinced necessarily that it's, kind of spreading like wildfire, so to speak. Now, there are certain settings where, like, for instance, God, in Seattle,
Oh
the
my
poor people, right?
gosh. Oh my gosh. And one home for older patients. It's how are responsible for most of the deaths.
Right. And that's not necessarily because of the patients interacting at whatever level. It's because you've got maybe a caretaker transmitting from person to person unwittingly at that point.
Right.
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 So it's hard really to say how, but like cold, I mean, it spreads probably like colds and like flus. This is
That's
what,
what the
right?
CDC was saying again just this morning, that it spreads very much like a flu, maybe a little more contagious than a flu, but the means of transmission is very much like the ordinary flu.
Right. Right. So, um, more of it. And as Enric in the chat room over here at YouTube says, he says, I don't think we're going to know most of the details and overview for a few months. And that's true.
That's
But
got to be true.
thanks to the kick butt South Koreans, we are getting even more information. And the
Right.
way that they are super kicking butt, I love this. Why don't we do this here, right? Aren't we the inventors of the drive-through window?
Right.
I
The
mean,
drive-through, it's an American institution.
now we deliver packages of like disgusting for you fast food. I want to say disgusting because I have to add that because probably it's one of the things I'm having withdrawals from right now is French fries are one of the bad things and they're so tasty, right?
Right.
But you go to the drive-through and you get this. There in South Korea, you go through a drive-through and you can have your coronavirus test at a drive-through
Wow.
in South Korea.
Wow.
And that's brilliant, right?
It
Because
is.
one of the things that might keep you from going to get tested is maybe you're not sick, but then by sitting in that infected waiting room, you don't know what's in those waiting rooms.
Exactly.
You're afraid you're going to get sick. And this is another, I'm putting off go get my blood tested just to see how my blood work is normally, right?
Right.
I put that off a little bit because I don't know what the people in that room, even at just the lab, are going to
Right.
be
Right.
having with them. Probably I'm not going to sit down anywhere. I'm going to be standing the whole time while I'm waiting or something,
Right.
because
Right.
you don't want to be waiting in those places. What do you do with a drive-through? You drive right up. I guess you stick your arm out and they draw blood. I don't know what they do, but It's better for the healthcare workers. It's better for the patients.
Oh, it's
And
brilliant.
it's fast,
Efficient. Yeah.
in and out. When it gets really
How
crowded, they have
long?
like
How
3
long is the
people working
turnover
the
time,
line.
though? Do they take information so they can give you, or is it right there they can give you the results?
Oh no, I imagine. I mean, it could be, kind of like the drive-in, fast food restaurant or whatever. Maybe go park over there and you can get your 15-minute result or whatever. Because I
Right.
heard it's 15 minutes. I don't know those parts, but
Right.
it's brilliant,
It is.
that they.
Great idea. I took my mom to a medical appointment earlier this week, and
Mm,
she's help her out there with her walker and get her into the doctor
yeah.
so she can get her checkup. What I was just outside of the clinic, I was a little disconcerted to see a bunch of people wearing masks. A lot of people wearing masks, and healthcare professionals wearing masks. People in the smocks, the medical smocks and everything. So I was a little disconcerted that medical professionals at just a medical office building, a clinic, ordinary clinic, were wearing the masks.
You might too, though, if you worked in that setting and you were dealing with this. I mean, really, it's, if you say, okay, ideally there'd be enough masks so that everybody who wanted to wear one as a precaution could.
Mhm.
But the way that they are prioritizing it, which is for healthcare workers and then also for people who themselves are infected.
Have it. I think that's where it's
Yes.
most effective, because
Mhm.
if you're just wearing a
Right.
mask and you're on a bus or in a waiting room or in an airplane, I'm not sure that's going to do you much good. On the other hand,
Right.
if you yourself are coughing and sneezing and have the disease, I think you can probably catch most of it, rather than infecting others.
Right. Right. No, I
Like they
think that's
say,
true.
it's when we cough, when we touch something, and then touch our face,
Yes.
right? Our eyes, our nose, our mouth are really the
Yes.
the main entrance ways for
Right.
viral and bacterial infections, right?
Yes. Yes. So, all of these things we have to just wait and see and keep taking all the normal precautions
But it will
that we
be
can.
weeks and weeks before we really get a good idea, get a good handle on the numbers. I
Yeah.
agree.
And the biggest thing is, try to take all those precautions yourself in terms of hand washing and everything else, and then do whatever you can to boost your immune system. And I think that, following this carnivorish diet that's healing me up is probably making me stronger too. So at least I'm feeling a little more
Yeah.
settled with that,
See if it's good.
personally.
See if our diet really is key, right? Because we either put a greater burden on our body, I think, when we eat garbage, or
Yes.
we help our metabolism and our immune system. And even if something happens to us, we're much better able to deal with it.
Lot more resilient if we keep on top of that stuff. So that's pretty much what everybody can do. The benefits of particular supplements or not, again, you can go down the rabbit trail on Google, but I'm trying to minimize my supplements. I'm debating about having some D in there, maybe a bit more D during this time period. I wasn't taking any D at all, and I was thinking maybe I should take a little bit of D. I go out every day in the
The
sun
sun,
anyway
yeah,
with the
right.
dog and stuff, and that's one of the best ways to do it. But yeah, good diet and exercise and sleep, and other things. But yeah, I'll go into more details about the stuff I'm trying to do that in that regard. Like I said, at my blog and in the Hangouts. But one more story on this, and I could not believe this. There's a guy at Dartmouth, and they haven't revealed his name as far as I
Right.
know yet.
Right.
May as well start calling the guy scumbag. I mean, I'd want to know more, not to call him scumbag. He's apparently a medical professional,
Right.
and he was told that he was at risk for having coronavirus, and he was tested, and he was told to stay home. And nonetheless, what does he do? He goes out to an event
To a
at
mixer.
Dartmouth,
Yeah,
to
with
a
all these
mixer
people. Yeah.
with students, social mixer with students.
Right.
Who
Right.
is this guy?
Totally irresponsible. Totally irresponsible. We think of violence, we think of, right, as, punching someone or shooting someone or stabbing someone. But when you got an infectious disease, one that's killing people, and you have been told not to go into public setting, and you do
Yes.
go into a crowded setting, and it
Yes.
deliberately get close exposure with a bunch of people, a bunch of young people at Dartmouth College, that is just wrong,
and
morally
and and
wrong.
you can't rationalize and say, okay, well, whoever else is at that mixer is probably healthy and they're young and everything.
Oh,
You can have no idea based on the appearance of somebody else that's a snapshot in time, what
You don't know
illness
if
they
they have
might
a
be
chronic
harboring.
lung condition or chronic heart condition. And
Nothing.
what we're finding
Or
with
immune condition, right? There's a lot of people out there
exactly,
with immune conditions.
exactly,
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. There's no way of knowing. And wow, it just strikes me as just so thoughtless and irresponsible. You know, I was not only going to say it's immoral, it gets to the point where I think law can actually come in because in effect, he's initiating physical force against other human beings.
I mean, knowingly doing this. So,
Yeah.
you know, the article that I was looking at was focusing on, well, it's not really breaking the law in New Hampshire. And, you know,
Well, maybe it
until
should.
there's,
Maybe it should
well,
be against the law.
maybe it should, maybe it should
If
at a
you are
certain point.
reckless, let's put it this way: if you have a knowing disregard for the health and lives of those around you, and
Negligence, at least.
exactly, come
Negligence
on,
suit.
yeah,
And, you know, I'm so sick of government about privacy around medical care because they are so two-faced. They
yeah,
are so two-faced. On the one hand, you read that HIPAA stuff and it's just, you know, government is protecting your privacy as much as it deigns to have a nice day. And that's HIPAA because they want the information about you. And this whole thing is a facade to supposedly protect your medical privacy while they can get access to whatever information they want about your health. And we've heard the stories about like Republicans who are anti-abortion have used their access to patients' medical data to find out who got abortions in a certain area. And I mean, just
that is
disgusting.
disgusting.
I mean, that's just one example, but you pick your bias, right? You know,
Right,
you could have the vegans of, you know, finding out which of us is eating a carnivore diet, you know, and
right.
saying, well, you deserve to be denied health care because you followed a carnivore diet. I don't care what reason you had for it, you know, whatever, you're evil for eating all that meat. Whatever, right?
Right.
So that's wrong. And then on the other hand, in a situation like this with coronavirus, they're going to protect this guy's privacy, like not release his name. Now, probably they all figured out who this guy was by now, because it seemed like they released enough detail about him that people could figure out who
If
he
you
was.
were, yeah, if you were
I
at that
don't,
mixer, you could probably figure it out.
maybe. Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, be able to sue him at least under
Right, right,
negligence.
right.
Sue him under negligence.
I got to think that this is a legally actionable kind of thing because we are talking about the knowing infliction of physical harm.
Jose over here in the chat room, he says, if they tell you to stay home, is it moral to go shopping for supplies? As I understand it, this sort of quarantine would have it so that you are able to go and do that, but that you should wear a mask and maybe gloves. But in any event, you're going to take major hand washing precautions before you go out there to do this. You go out there, you get your stuff, you go back home. And you just don't needlessly endanger anybody else.
Yeah, obviously, any moral or legal judgment on this would depend upon the entire context of facts. That is to say, look, I needed to go get medicine and I took what precautions I could.
Yes.
I think that's a defense. You know, the level of your need to get out there and the level of the reasonable precautions you took about it.
Yeah.
If, however, you've been told not to go out and socialize, and then you intentionally go into a crowded setting and closely, and that's the way they described it, having close personal contact with a bunch of people, that's a different context altogether.
Right. Entirely. Definitely. So for you personally there, I mean, I was looking at the maps this morning, but sometimes they update our numbers on the left coast, as we call it. They could be updating our numbers a little bit later in the day. You know, you can catch updated numbers from other places. Okay. So I'm refreshing my map. I've got a tab open constantly on the map because I'm watching the numbers each day. You know, see what happens. As I understand it, they might be doing something weird here in Southern California where they're saying, you know, oh, we only update on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I hate manipulations like that. It's like, we don't want to deal with people being upset about the increase in numbers, except for on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, no, release the numbers, get more numbers,
Right.
test, give us the drive-throughs.
Tell us what you know. Right.
Where are the drive-throughs? Where
Yeah.
are those drive-throughs? If there was a drive-through, I mean, I was just talking this morning with a friend and saying, hey, wouldn't it be awesome if we could, even if we're well, but we think maybe it's already passed through us, you could get, now obviously you want to spare the resources when there
Test
aren't
for the
resources.
antibody.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. But once there's enough tests to go around, and if suppose people willing to pay for it or whatever, get tested for the antibody.
Right.
And then you get tested for the antibody. You could know you've already been exposed. You could take whatever trip you wanted, anywhere you wanted. And, you're still not going to be reckless, because who knows what the next coronavirus is going to be.
We can fantasize about what a free market in medicine would look like.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And the drive-through really gets you thinking about that, doesn't it?
And South Korea doesn't have a free market. It's just, this is their particular way of maximizing their resources.
But when they have something like that, it does make you think about the possibilities of what a free market in healthcare could provide and could do. The other time I think of that is when I take our dogs to the vet.
Mm-hmm.
It is so efficient. They're so friendly. It's so cheap. It's so reasonable.
Yes.
And yet they're getting sophisticated tests. They're getting sophisticated treatment, and it's treated in an entirely different way. Yes. And it makes me think that human medicine, which of course much more important and vastly more resources are poured into it, would be, I dare not guess what science fiction state our medical infrastructure would be like if we had something approximating a truly free market in healthcare.
Yes. And that would be a very good transition into the whole kind of big next topic, is the reluctantly carnivore / sick care discussion that I want to have. But I have one total layman's, I am not an expert, speculation about one issue that is relevant to everybody guessing about the coronavirus and its ability to spread and all that kind of stuff. And it is this. People have been saying, well, maybe as it gets warmer, it is going to recede a little bit. It's not going to be as much out there and contagious when in the warmer weather, just like any respiratory virus, right?
Maybe.
And maybe. Well, but one thing, and I mean, I only took just a glance, right? Because we're in Southern California, but there are fewer cases in Southern versus Northern California. And if you look across the whole United States, last I've checked too, there appear to be fewer reported cases in the southern part where it's warm now already.
Gosh, I hope that's true, because that would indicate that the change of season
is going to help everybody.
Yes. Might help everybody. Yeah. So wouldn't that be great if it actually was like that? And there's a good chance it could be like that. And
anyway, some expert has to really crunch the data, because I took my casual glance. And
Trump trying to calm everyone down says it's going to be like that, and people have given him a hard time saying, well, we don't really know for sure, Mr. President, whether it's going to be like that. But let's hope it's like that.
Yeah. I mean, if I was one of the experts and I have access to all of the data, I mean, I guess I could put together a database, but I have a blog post to write and other things to do. But that's my just armchair speculation, is that maybe that, if it's true, is a little bit of evidence.
Yeah. Let's hope. Yeah. I'll go with it.
Yeah. I mean, and this is, of course, again, other things being equal.
Right.
So, climate, other things being equal, if you can get rid of the confounding factors, as they call them, all this sort of terminology I'm steeped in now, because I've had to do the rabbit trail to try to get better. And I'm getting all of this data. Sorry about that.
And nutrition is one of the most complicated areas of health, I think. It's, I think we're still learning important things, and I think we still have important things to learn.
Yes.
And it's such a complex interaction of a variety of chemicals that, we ideally need. It's one of the more, it's like predicting the weather or something. It's so complex.
Yes. Yes. So let's launch in then, right? And I think you might have some experiences that are relevant, maybe with respect to both of the kind of prongs that I want to talk about. One of them is the sick care system and how it can leave people like you and me who have been sick with digestive junk at times, maybe still have, are working through that kind of stuff, leave us having to go out and be, sort of our own doctors, which is not the great thing to be. Because, I've had to, I felt like I've had to be my own doctor this whole way through. And I think actually I was right, but I'm telling you that as my own doctor, I have made big blunders. And then even the doctors are making their blunders.
Right.
And then because of their blunders, I have to be my own doctor more. Right. And then there's more blunders and it makes it worse. And then finally now I'm getting better, but I don't have medical education. I think there's a couple things at play in particular in this realm, right? And it could be true of other areas of disease as well. Okay. But this is the experience I have. I've been mostly healthy in my life. I've been very blessed, but as far as I can piece together, there's certain foods that haven't liked me that I persisted in eating and was tolerating to a large degree until a powder keg went off in my body last year. And it was a combination of moving plus being exposed to a pile of mold in my air conditioning. Okay. So this powder keg goes off and my digestion just goes to hell. So, how do you get in this situation where the medical establishment is not coming to you with the proper dietary advice to deal with it and really telling you that before you're being put on pills or because I went to a functional medicine doctor, that my journey begins for me in terms of, if I look back, there were signs earlier, but in terms of a medical diagnosis, my journey begins back in late 2014, early 2015, when I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's. And Hashimoto's is a thyroid autoimmune disorder. And I went to a functional medicine doctor. I just said, I'm not feeling that good. And this and this, So he tests me for everything under the sun. And he says, hey, you got these antibodies for Hashimoto's. I was like, oh, Hashimoto's. And then I realized, okay, my sister had that and my other sister had it too. It's like, okay, it's in the family. I think the reason that it was in my family actually is in part because none of us were breastfed. They used to advise at the time that I was growing up that formula was so good. You were going to outsmart
superior to mother.
You're going to outsmart the natural body, right? So that could have been part, but who knows?
Right.
It can be triggered by dairy and gluten. Okay, and as Benjamin was the funniest. He says, baby cows are not we, or something like that. We are not baby cows.
We're not baby cows.
We're not cows. Moreover, we're not baby cows. There is a good chance that these proteins in this milk that are designed for baby cows are not going to be your friend, right? And maybe some people tolerate them better than others. But if I look back all the way to my teen years when I was drinking huge things of milk, I'd break out from it. Anyway. So, fast forward and I'm getting older and I wasn't doing dog agility as much and my life had changed in certain ways. And then I come up with this Hashimoto's diagnosis. If I knew now if I knew then what I know now, I would just change my diet like that.
Right.
But nobody tells you this. And my functional medicine doctor, what does he do? He puts me on a thyroid medication. That's what he does. Functional medicine doctor puts me on thyroid medication, and moreover, too much thyroid medication. So if you think you felt crappy before, just wait till you have a excess of thyroid medication panic attack induced in you. And there's always, things in daily life too that are going to get you. But I was over medicated, and I did, tamp that down. I'm not going to sit there and just keep taking a bunch of medication that's making me jittery. But so that was it.
Well, we have a system of
why? Yeah, that's my question for you.
Well, we have, as usual, industries take the shape of the law, and unfortunately, the law has reshaped our medical system so that it's no longer. I mean, you'd think that when you go to a doctor, right, you're getting a holistic treatment where he's looking at the entire, your lifestyle, your diet, where you live, as well as genetic factors. And so would be looking at the patient as an entire entity, and
Yes.
holistically, for
Yes.
lack of a better word, holistically, and be considering things like your lifestyle and diet, things like that. Instead, what we have is we have a medical system that feels to me more and more controlled by the law. That is to say, doctors have protocols and treatments which have to be approved by the government and are marketed to them in such a way through the government system that, okay, that's your approved set of treatments or vaccines.
Yes.
And then on
Yes.
the other hand, we have lawsuits and all kinds of lawsuits that make doctors practice defensive medicine and sort of stick to what is government approved protocols.
Because then they are not liable in a court of
Liable.
law. Yeah.
So the approved treatments, the approved medicines, and then of course there's a whole political correctness culture that we have also on top of all of that. So
Yes.
between all those factors, what we have is, instead of and there are good doctors, I have to say, who do look at. I've noticed myself, because I've had all kinds of health problems
Oh
during my
yeah.
life.
You've probably been to more specialists than I have.
Right. And
Yeah.
so I know that a lot of doctors are treating symptoms and going by approved protocols. The good doctors, the really good doctors, a family practitioner, a general practitioner or something, will sit down and really figure you out as an individual and look at you, as I say, for lack of a better word, holistically. They are out there. There's still some brave souls in the medical profession that I know that are really good doctors that do take that approach. But I think it's getting more and more rare. I think it's
I told you I went from specialist to specialist, and I started getting sick at the beginning of August. I didn't get a proper diagnosis until well into October, after seeing many specialists. It was my second ENT who finally said, hey, this is digestive.
Right.
Before that, I'd seen an allergist / pulmonologist, a cardiologist, but that was just really to screen because they had come up with this fluky abnormal EKG, which turned out to be not anywhere close to what my issue was.
Right.
But I'd seen my GP multiple times, including reporting weight loss and stuff too. And I mean, nobody was suggesting this. And then finally now my GP helped me get into this second ENT like really quickly, which was cool. So he's part of it. I get to be grateful for each little person for their part. But here's my theory, right? So we have a few factors going on about with respect to our sick care system, as we'll call it, because of government intervention into our healthcare industry. One of them is, just like you say, the protocols. There's also just the sheer amount of paperwork, bureaucracy and paperwork that overwhelms a doctor, such that a doctor cannot go out there and Google all the time the way that we can, not in a value-oriented way.
Right.
We used
I
to,
agree.
like, we would rely on a doctor to be naturally curious about the latest developments in his field and stuff. And I think a lot of them are finding that they don't have the time or energy after dealing with all the levels of bureaucracy that they have to. So that's one thing. And then let's think about the cronyism angle. I had already, before the show, had this one cronyism angle firmly in mind, and it's, with respect to my own history, and I don't know what extent it came up in your history as well. If you go to a GI doctor with sort of complaints, and the complaints that I had are more along the reflux axis. It's not exactly a standard reflux case, but that's the sort of thing that was going on. And they throw you these drugs, and again, it's a pill. And like I said, even if some functional medicine doctors, they're going to throw you pills first. The pill they throw you is an anti-acid proton pump inhibitor called Prilosec, and then their fallback is to give you Pepcid. Pepcid's, it cuts out your acid for a shorter period of time, so it's not as bad. But that Prilosec, it reduces your stomach acid for 24 hours.
Oh yeah.
And that is what they give you. They don't ask more questions. They don't ask, for example, do you have what they call a hiatal hernia, such that you have a structural issue that you might actually need that. There are people who need those. So, drugs are good for people who need them, but a lot of the standard people who walk in those places don't need those. Did you have an equivalent? I don't know all the details of your condition, but did you have the equivalent where you go to a GI doctor and they
Oh
just
yeah.
give you those
That is
same
exactly
pills?
well, that's the first thing they'll do is they'll say, well, try this pill, try this pill, try this, try that. And what they are is they are the approved protocols.
Yes.
And I did go through a couple of GI doctors before I finally found a good GI doctor who did look at me holistically. And that changed everything. And now I don't take things like Prilosec. I don't.
Okay.
At one point in my life, I was taking like 4 different medicines, like Prilosec, Imodium, this and that, and every day
Wow.
I would take 4 different, probiotics finally got into the mix, and
Yeah.
all kinds of things were getting into the mix. But now with this new GI specialist, basically no meds except as needed when I have
Yeah.
a.
Now, even a probiotic can be a significant intervention, and I actually haven't introduced that yet myself. I'm holding off. I mean, I was taking it for a while because, again, a GI doctor told me, here, and take this one, and it looked good, and I started to, but I don't feel so great with this. So I'm trusting my body more right now, and then
Right.
I'm thinking about when will be
Well,
the
the thing
right
is,
point
we
to
know that
introduce it.
bacteria is needed in our gut for digestion
Well,
properly.
and
But
this
then
is
again, too much bacteria or the wrong kind of bacteria can screw us up as well.
and it's our relationship with the bacteria that's we're gonna go into the philosophical portion of this, the reluctant carnivore discussion. But so we've got the cronyism there, but then something that you said made me think of another aspect of the cronyism, which is this. We know that, for instance, in this election cycle, that Trump is still courting the farmers.
Mm-hmm.
And part of politicians courting the farmers is for them to make that stupid USRDA pyramid with all the grains and a whole bunch of dairy and stuff in there. And I suspect there are more people like me who care to admit that grains and dairy are not their friends.
Right. But it is total cronyism. The Department of
Totally.
Agriculture has been promoting the products of farmers that the
Milk
government
and grains, milk and
subsidizes.
grains, milk and
Right.
grains.
And those are the areas where the government subsidizes farmers as well. So there's just this giant, long known that through much of the 20th century and into the 21st century, farmers have been living on subsidies. And now that Trump has these tariffs, which have been hurting farmers, boy, now we really need to get aggressive and get back to doing more subsidies, double down on those subsidies
Yes.
to protect the farmers from his own policy of tariffs.
Yes. Yes. And so what we see is the, sort of direct interventions. And then we see, whereas I don't have anything against farmers, but or I don't have anything against corporations. I don't have anything against drugs and medicine. When you need them, and they're wonderful things. And I want the drug makers to be free to develop the drugs that are going to be truly useful to people and to get all the money that they can. But we need to have doctors who I think appreciate the human body's ability to heal better than they do. But they can't just, for instance, like I said, my GP, like I would go there, he's against antibiotics a lot, but you can't just be against antibiotics. You have to, at the same time, come in with some knowledge about what might actually be going on with the patient so that you can help them not get in a situation where they need antibiotics. So for example, the antibiotics were actually making me feel better. Why were the antibiotics making me feel better? Well, I might have had a bit of bronchitis in connection with the digestive stuff, plus the irritation to my lungs and bronchial tubes from the mold, right?
Yeah.
So there could have really actually been infections going on. But then moreover, the antibiotic that I was taking, which I demanded because I tried amoxicillin and that stuff is garbage, it's a broader spectrum, and it actually happens to, at least temporarily, kick back SIBO. So why was I feeling better when I took the antibiotics? Because it was beating back the bugs. But that wasn't what they all thought they were treating. I only learned this in hindsight. This is garbage. Why do I have to go down this rabbit hole, right?
Right.
Why?
And learn by accident what's really going on.
My friends tell me, it's like, you shouldn't be your own doctor. It's like,
You shouldn't have to be.
I would not be sitting here right now off of Pepcid and every other drug I'm not taking any thyroid medication. I'm not
That's
taking any, stomach remedy things.
That's good.
I'm off, like I said, they had, I don't know if I talked to on this show or talked only on my insiders thing. They had prescribed to me a benzodiazepine as part of this whole journey.
A strong one, Ativan. That is a powerful tranquilizer.
Okay. Well, I didn't know it was a benzodiazepine. I had been exposed to it before and I gotten off it really easily. And so I had no clue until there was the whole thing with Jordan Peterson. And then I Googled and I was like, oh, damn, that was a benzodiazepine. I went cold turkey, but I was taking one of those really small doses, but I had gotten out of it a week before the news about him came out. So I was like, but not that was it wasn't a walk in the park to get off that either. But point is, I wouldn't be here unless I had gone down this whole rabbit trail, because the reason I got off of it when I did was that I was already feeling well enough and strong enough because of the interventions that I had already come to at that point.
Right.
So, what choice do we have? And then the question is, right, if now, this is the political, and then we'll go philosophical in a minute. Some people are waiting for the carnivore philosophical stuff, but politically, this is a huge problem. What is the solution to our sick care system? You and I know both that it is to get government out of the industry, right? And maybe get yourself away from the crony insurance companies, for example, because we know that health insurance is a joke these days. It's not really insurance anymore.
The thing about a free market is that it's the improvement of the product, or at least the value of the product, that happens over time. Do we have a medical system here that's driven by health outcomes? I don't think so. I think we have a medical system here that's driven by the government and its regulations, and making sure everyone, if you just think about the resources that are poured in, just to the administrative aspects of providing the healthcare to everyone, that's resources that isn't going to healthcare, but simply to the bureaucracy. And rather than competing for better healthcare outcomes, they are reducing their costs, reducing their liability, following protocol to get by. That is an unhealthy situation. Obviously, the free market is
definitely.
It's the simple answer. It really is, because we don't have a system in which medical care providers are competing for better healthcare outcomes at all.
No, we really don't. And somebody who has wonderful ideas, both in the space that I've had to go down this rabbit hole, which is, sort of dietary interventions to improve your health. And because this guy, he's just brilliant. He also has done a substantial amount of thinking about how to, get his insertion point where you could help to fix the system, is Rob Wolf, the paleo author.
Right.
And I am really hoping to grab him for an interview.
Yeah.
I'm going to beg him for an interview pretty quick here, because I would like to both compare notes, because it turns out that he had a gut blip recently after a move and stuff. It's like ominous parallels, right? It was his was around the last year too. He'd moved to Texas from I think New Mexico or something with his family and everything. But some of that stuff. But moreover, he is coming out with a book on the ethics of a meat-based diet, which is wonderful, and the science too, the science and the ethics. And he's got some ideas, which I don't want to say too much about, because he's been spreading them only in his sort of, kind of catered group that he's got called the Healthy Rebellion. But he's talking about real ideas, sort of his insertion point to try to fix the issue of our healthcare system. And I'm very impressed with this. I mean, it's brilliant. And he's such a clear writer too. He just had some posts that he wrote about this in that group. And it's just literate and clear and passionate. He's been bumping up against this forever himself with his personal story, but then also trying to help people. So, so there are some ideas. The question is, right, if you find a certain insertion point, which could be pay cash out of pocket, suppose that you say, okay, well, I'm just going to pay cash out of pocket. Well, you're still typically going to doctors who have to depend on this bureaucracy for their overall survival.
Right.
And, you know, you're going to be very lucky if you find a doctor who has the time and energy and passion still left in him. It hasn't been beaten
Right.
out of him
Right.
by this system to, you know, go and look at the latest science at Cedars-Sinai about digestive issues or whatever it is. I mean, there are people within the system, but it just strikes me that, you know, the information is proliferating way too slowly
Right.
when there is a real discovery, an
Right.
evidence-based discovery, as they call it, within the healthcare system. The information is proliferating way too slowly. And the doctors that I've spoken to, one was the ENT and another a GI specialist, who both seem to be more on top of the things, were in a university setting. And my hypothesis with respect to them is that in a university setting, the medical professionals have a lot more infrastructure to take care of the bureaucratic aspects of their job, and they have a
Right.
little bit more time to
They're
sit
not
back
the
and
ones
think.
worried. Right. They're not the ones worried with the extra paperwork. My GI specialist is with UCSD.
See?
Yeah. And he's great.
See?
He's great. And I'll come in and I'll say, hey, with my last bout of diverticulitis, I told him I tried a keto. You know, I dumped the
Yeah.
protocol. He said, fine, good, cool. How'd it work? And he's all for it.
Yeah.
You know? And in fact, he's encouraging me to try a more and more and more keto diet. He's not sure. Again, he'll give me the little cautions. He's like, it sounds good. It looks good. If it works for you, go with it. He says, for myself, I still think some fiber in our diet is a good thing, and things like that. But apart from those little provisos that he gives, he's totally for what works.
Yes. Yeah. And this, yeah. So this is where we can start to go into the reluctant carnivore / philosophical portion of the discussion, right? Because I'm proselytizing to you to a certain extent, because having gone down this whole rabbit trail myself and just piles of research, and like I said, thank God for Rob Wolf, and then he steers me to Chris Kresser, and then I find Norm Robillard by Chris Kresser and all this. Sorry, I'm gonna have to cough a little. Maybe this is tickling my throat a little too much, the coffee. It might be a little too much for me still at this point, people. I'm healing quite a bit, but I think I'm going to stick with water for the rest of the time now. I'll be up to a full cup of coffee probably in a week or so, maybe. But you know, you got to try it every so often. It's a good test.
Build slowly. Build slowly.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing. I'm building slowly, right? So, yeah. So I'm trying to push you in this direction too. But so the way things stand for me right now is I am mostly carnivore. And my exceptions are that I'm using olive oil to cook my meat. I'm told that I should try duck fat, right? I was cooking everything in ghee. I took ghee out because I think even ghee, if they don't really clarify it well enough, you've got those caseins in there. And I'm getting all the caseins out of my body for a few weeks to just see what happens, right? So no, that's hardcore, right? And
right, that is hardcore.
Things taste so good cooked in ghee. Oh my God. Oh. Why? Because it's butter. And I saw this one article about you know, that cheese is crack or something. It's casein crack, because there's opiate type substances in the casein and the milk proteins. And I'm telling you, Starbucks and the lattes are just calling me like all the damn time if I drive by. It's oh, the taste of this.
Amy, I taste so good.
Anyway, so then the quest is, you know, what do you cook your meat in, right? You can't cook it in butter anymore, certainly not even ghee. I'm getting that out. So I tried tallow. I was like, ugh. I'm not a natural carnivore. And I've had to ramp up my meat consumption. The reason I'm going down this route is, and you've seen me on this show kind of go through the progression, as soon as I started increasing my meat content of my diet, I started feeling better and stronger and healing more. Right. I have seen that. That is unequivocal. So all you carnivores out there who are like, yeah, carnivore, yes, I will give that to you in 2 seconds. You cannot argue with results. And particularly when you see them in your own body, you cannot argue with that at all. I have increased. I am eating at least 1.25 pounds of meat a day. Okay. Wow. at least 1.25 pounds of meat, and I'm accompanying, with all kinds of fat with it, such that I'm doing something like a 70-30 ratio keto wise. The other thing that I'm doing besides, using a little bit of vegetable fat right now, I'm using my olive oil because it's much tastier than either of the 2 meat fats that I've tried. I'm told I'm supposed to try duck. Duck fat might be the answer in terms of a meat
I
fat.
love the taste of duck.
I don't know that I should avoid olive oil if I can tolerate it.
Right.
So,
of course, it's plant-based, but that's it's the kind of plant stuff that I still eat is like olives and avocados and stuff like that. And I admit it, I still have non-meat stuff in my diet for sure, but I try to keep it to what I perceive as something works with me and is healthy for me.
And that's the rub, which is, you perceive that it works with you, and then how do you determine that exactly? Because as Michaela Peterson, for all of her faults, I mean, I'm in one sense, I'm grateful to Michaela Peterson because she helped to put the little seed in my brain that this might be helpful for me as somebody who's had a, small relative to her autoimmune issue.
Right.
But at the same time, I have my reservations about her. We can talk about that in a minute. And not reservations, but it's just reservations about a certain position that she's taken with respect to carnivore, not about her necessarily, because I can kind of understand all the places that she's been.
See, Holly and I can tolerate dairy very, very easily. We've never.
So you think?
So we think. I know. But what we're doing these days,
James,
we're cooking our beef in butter. Literally.
Well, I would cook it at least in ghee if you're going to do that.
Right.
That would be just to reduce the casein load. But
the casein load, right?
But the experiment, and I mean, I'm telling you, you're probably addicted to it right now, James. I'm telling you,
maybe so. Maybe so.
The test would be take it out for a month,
right?
Entirely, and see how you feel.
Right.
That's your test, right? That's your test. Anyway.
Right, but I do put cream in my coffee, and we do cook in butter. I mean, I have to admit it.
I did that for a very long time too, and like I said, just drinking these tiny little 1 tablespoon shot glasses of cream set off a reaction in me.
Wow.
Okay, so and what happens as you go down this is I think you get more and more sensitive to every stupid little quirk in your body, which is both good and bad because it heightens your ability to be aware of your food sensitivity issues, which, okay, why did I go on Michaela Peterson? I'm the woman, they have the meme that goes around there with the woman in the weavy stories and the men are like straight line. The reason I brought up Michaela Peterson is because one of the things that she said, and I think it's true, and I understand from other places it's true as well, is that a food reaction can take hours to days to show up. And it was a few days into my little cream drinking experiment that I started with the esophageal pain again.
But that is consistent with my own experience. Yeah. I can eat something and then I'll wonder, hey, I didn't eat anything that even might have been questionable yesterday or the day before. But then I'll look back on my schedule and think, oh, well, 3 or 4 days ago, I did and is that what's causing the problem? It can take days, in other words, for my system to react to something bad that I may have eaten.
Exactly. And so that is why you have to be more realistic and more careful, because anyone I've talked diet with, and I talked a lot with Benjamin, who's good on food.
He's a brilliant cook too. My God.
Yeah. Yes. And so, tried this, tried that and everything. And he's saying, one thing at a time. He's telling me he's right about so many things. He's not big on meat, poor guy. I'm sitting here eating these huge things of meat now, but he was very right about a couple things. One is the whole foods, eating whole foods and staying away from processed, which whatever diet you're going to follow, that's a great one. And then the other is if you're going to experiment and figure out what other things are actually safe for you, one at a time is really the safest. Like I'm really, I just took another sip of this, right? I have to get it out of my way because I already had the little tickle in the throat and I need to be conscious. See how easy that is, right? I told myself, it's like, okay, I've had enough of that for today and let's just give it a rest for a few days and try it again and, be good. but it's hard because
Yeah,
the stuff is tempting.
it is.
And the other day when I was just so discouraged with beef tallow, I added one food in. So this is my one food besides the oil.
The one factor that we control for.
The one factor that I've added in my diet the last couple of days is strawberries.
Ooh. Well, that's
So,
definitely not carnivore. That's got all kinds of natural sugars in there, and
yeah.
right?
Now I cook them. I did cook them because they're easier to digest when you cook.
Right, right.
Okay? So this is my, so it's just meat and eggs and some kind of fat, and I'm using even olive oil as the fat. No dairy, nothing else, but strawberry. So I cooked the strawberry. I just took like a quarter cup of strawberry. I'm just so wimpy, right? But I'm doing just a little at a time to experiment. I've done it the last 2 nights, and just cook them, slice them and cook them in a little bit of coconut oil, and eat it before dinner, right? So it digests a little better.
Fruit first.
Fruit first. And, eat the fruit and then cook the rest of my dinner. So then I has the time, just because fruit just digests like quickly.
Right.
Yeah. And then
you eat a little fruit on an empty stomach, it'll go right through you. Yeah.
That is the only thing I'm not doing. I am carnivore-ish. Why? Again, I give you carnivore people. I'm going to give you this. I got here very organically. I had to keep eliminating things from my diet because my symptoms were not going away, and I was identifying different things. And then, when I read about oxalates, I say, wow, I was eating this high oxalate item. I was reacting this way. All of this is making sense to me. Okay. And I'm feeling better when I'm adding meat into my diet. I'm getting stronger. I'm healing. I cannot argue with these observations about my own health.
Right.
There's just no arguing with it.
No arguing with results.
No. And so here I am, right? So it's like, okay, I'll increase more. And then you think, for somebody like me who's just like, tried to go more and more restrictive and is still having issues.
Yeah.
If you go 100% carnivore or very close to it, you have what is called the ultimate elimination diet. And that's what I see carnivore is for me. It is doing 2 things. It's the ultimate elimination diet. And at the same time, it is providing me with what I agree with you again, give you another thing, carnivore. In terms of nutrient dense food, meat is amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Meat is amazing as the ultimate nutrient dense food. As far as I understand,
nutrition per ounce, beef has got to be the all-time food, right? And when you look at the meats, they get the widest spectrum of nutrients, proteins, and vitamins, right?
Yes.
Meat.
And if you add organ meat, a little bit of egg yolk, add some collagen, and you are up on your electrolytes, you can pretty much get all your nutrition needs met. Okay.
Right.
As far as I know, and I am not a medical doctor, and go research everything yourself, because I had to go down the rabbit trail. You do too, right?
And do be aware of electrolytes, because I've known people who have gone on keto diets and they feel weird and they say, what's wrong? Oh, and suddenly it was potassium or salt that they were lacking. They just took a little bit of potassium or salt in their diet, and they suddenly feel better.
Yes. So. Now, what I learned from Rob Wolf also this week is, whereas sodium, there is a huge margin of error within which you can have excess sodium and it's not going to hurt you. Contrary to most medical advice.
Exactly. For years we were told, don't have too much salt. And now it seems that
gotta have piles of salt, especially on keto.
And it really seems that large amounts of salt don't cause the harms that people used to think, at least
as long as you don't have insulin resistance.
See, that's
if you're right about your keto diet, this is it, James. Like, you've got to do it. If you're going to do it, you got to do it right. Because if you don't do it right and you keep your sugars and your junk in there, you can still have insulin resistance.
Well, that's exactly it. The sugar and the fat will hurt us, or the salt and the fat will hurt us if we're eating sugar.
Yes.
It's the sugar that creates the problem with that stuff.
So this is all the stuff, again, we're not doctors.
No, I'm not.
I went down the rabbit trail. I had to do it for myself. Do it for yourself. Also, like, I'm going to help with my blog post and everything else. But, some people hopefully benefit from what I've had to go through, and hopefully you don't have to go through as much. But yeah, eliminate, get to this place. And this is where I've said, okay, I'm now on the ultimate elimination diet. Right now I've got strawberries, olive oil, maybe these little bits of extras that are in my coffee. Really, the only extra that is in here is the coconut cream, right? Because I'm pretty sure the MCT oil and the collagen is fairly safe.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's the coconut cream that, we'll see. So, one thing at a time, as much as you can, you add back in, but you have to do it for days. So for example, I have to think about, do I add zucchini or whatever, but
Excuse me. Yeah.
so then
That's
here's where we get philosophical. So this is where I am. I backed into this, and I'll give you one more bit of practical thing about this. If you back into this the way that I have, which is you eliminate and then you eliminate and you still have to eliminate some more, and then you're like, oh God, I have to go on the ultimate elimination diet. Here it is. It's this carnivore. There's a couple things benefits that I've gotten from that. One is you ramp up your ability to eat that much meat. I have always liked meat, right? But not on a everyday basis in the huge quantities
and
that
over
are
a pound a
required.
day.
I'm doing 1.25 pounds a day,
Right.
and it's because I would like to if I could potentially gain weight, but I'm sort of giving up on the gaining weight thing too, because I realized finally a couple things, and I asked my father just to be kind of get a reality check about it. My grandmother, this 100% Norwegian woman, was just rail thin whenever I met her. And she lived well into her 90s. Okay. And I am not a large boned person. And it's so funny because I always used to think of myself as a very like hardy kind of big actually, but I'm actually kind of small. But it used to be that I had a lot of extra weight on me that was from the bread and the milk. Right. And so you take the bread and the milk away, and then suddenly I'm like who I am. Yeah. And I'm this rail thin person.
Right.
And
without carbs, you're a real thin person.
yeah. So, here's more medical establishment, right? Because
right.
Those BMI indices are government produced, and they are taking into account the crony relationship with the farmers and the dairy. So all the people who are part of this are right. So, but what happens to me when I go out there on Mr. Google and I look at my weight, which is technically a few pounds under what they call underweight. I'm a few pounds underweight. I'm stable at that while I'm eating on this way. I would like to gain a bit, and I'm going to try. The way to do it is to go lift weights. I'm told I'm doing it. But I'm made to feel bad because, I feel it's like, oh my God, I'm underweight and coronavirus is going to kill me.
Right.
And, this is where
I think that those government indexes are really horrible at both ends. Yeah. I think for when you're underweight or if you're overweight, by what they say, they in many cases are just causing stress and panic.
Some people are bigger bone, some people are smaller bone. There's all the different factors that come into play. And so, again, we are individuals, and why can't doctors do things to treat us that way? And when they see, for example, like all these doctors that I've seen, it's like, oh my God, I lost more weight and I'm feeling bad. And I start shoving a bar that's like poison into my mouth to just try to get calories. Right. And they don't stop me because they're not, it's like, look, you don't have to worry. You're small boned. You're blah, blah, blah. It's like, doctors, why aren't you doing this for me? Why do I have to do this?
Can't I get some nutrition advice or some more holistic advice on my, and the really good doctors, like I say, my GI doctor is really good. Yeah. When I go to him, we'll sit down, and the first thing he'll do is just talk about my lifestyle and how my life has been going and what I've been doing, stresses in my life.
Yes.
I love that. And it makes him a better doctor because of it.
Yes. Yes. And stress can shut down stomach acid.
Oh, stress and the digestive
anything of the more
very closely related. Yeah.
So there's all that too. So me backing into this has allowed me to ramp up my meat consumption and my body's ability to assimilate the meat while I'm also, still trying to eat other things and blah, blah, blah. So, I've been able to get up to a quantity that I can handle and that I need. And then the other thing is, whereas a lot of people, they're eating standard American diet, like just junk. Joe Rogan, I'm looking at you, right? From what I understand, I haven't listened to a whole ton of his, but I've listened to quite a bit of his on the carnivore stuff. And as I understand it, he's just like, okay, I'll eat carnivore one day, and then I'm going to have a total junk cheat day, and it didn't hurt me at all. And, no, but a lot of people are that way, where it's like they're eating not even keto, and then they go straight carnivore. And yeah, of course your digestive system is going to go, huh?
Ooh,
And
yeah.
freak out. And you're going to have all the weird effects that people have been talking about digestively on the internet that I don't want to talk about, because they get really graphic about their stuff. What I can tell you is I haven't had any major like digestive system adjustment in any way. Why? Because I have gradually backed into this as an elimination type diet. And to me, it strikes me that regardless of why you're adopting carnivore, or, you know, why you think that that's the best way for you to go. And I think there's a wide variety of people for whom it could be the best way to go, at least for a limited time.
Yeah.
Right. It's better, I think, for your system to kind of back into it more organically the way that I have. I'm kind of kicking and screaming, as I say, reluctantly, but also enthusiastically. Right. Because like I said, you can't argue with the results. And I'm happy with this as a path. But
I like Benjamin's rule, the one thing at a time.
To reintroduce.
Well,
that's a proper elimination diet. You know, that's what you do. You cut out until you're with everything you know is safe. And then from there, you add one thing at a time.
Well, that seems very logical to me.
Well, it's Mill's method of difference. That's all it is.
Exactly.
And you're getting rid of the confounding factors with respect to your own body.
Sound inductive reasoning, right?
Yeah. So, you know, particularly if you've got weight that you can stand to lose, not necessarily that you want to lose or whatever, but you can stand to lose a little bit of weight and it's no biggie. Trying this as the ultimate elimination diet is fine. You know, just be prepared, because you got to try to get the calories in, and it's going to be an uphill battle for me to gain weight now on it. And I'd like to gain a bit. So, so, you know, you back into it, you do it as elimination diet. It's a great thing. When you do it that way, practically speaking, I think you have the least ill effects.
Yeah.
And I'm going to share on my blog the different things that I supplement and exactly what I'm doing. And when I do get my blood test, which I hope to be brave enough to do this next week because of, you know, coronavirus, or, you know, again, I'll try to be smart and not introduce anything that's going to throw me back again and all that. But I'll share my blood test results with you guys too. I used to have 180 cholesterol. I don't know the breakdown from that. And my 180 cholesterol was still eating quite a bit of carbs with a lot of fat on a supposedly paleo-ish, but really actually junky diet.
Wow.
So I'll compare notes and show you guys what my blood work. Just as another anecdotal data point for you guys to throw around, because supposedly some of these guys are actually sharing their blood work. Paul Saladino is a walking medical dictionary or encyclopedia, really. So he's great. Rob Wolf, like I said, I like him as an overall well-rounded thinker in this space. And Kresser's awesome too. But go search these guys and figure out, you know, what any of this can offer to you. I say back into it. Now here's where we talk about reluctant, and I'll ask you first. You're kind of backing into this too, James.
Yeah,
it sounds
very much so. Slowly backing into it.
Okay. Yeah. And what is your attitude about it as a long-term lifestyle? Is it something that you want? If you were going to say, like, suppose I tell you that yes, this is the most nutrient dense food that there is on the whole planet. And, you know, the other foods, like even your avocados and stuff, have a certain amount of toxins or other things that are hard on your body, and that you could live a healthy, strong life for the rest of your life, carnivore. What do you think?
Well, I think that's probably true. I think that
okay. So you think you think that's probably true. Now, I mean, I think the jury is out on the.
But do I want to?
Right. Do you want to? And if not, why not? That's my question.
There is something to be said for the experience of enjoying even sugar. If you are on a basically keto or carnivore diet, if you were to have a little sugar once a year or something, or twice a year, I don't think that's going to kill you.
Even more than that, you could probably have a little bit.
Plucking the numbers from the sky to make it easy.
Science-wise, as I understand it, the thing to do is to test your insulin response when, you know, after you've got kind of keto programmed in your body for quite some time, and you know that generally you are insulin sensitive, which is the good way you want to be, then you can do that as an experiment. You get one of those round the clock glucose monitors or whatever,
Right.
and you see what happens to your blood sugar as you have a little bit. And you might be a person who, once you've reconditioned your system, you can have a little bit. And then if you know that you can control yourself and not go crazy, then you're not going to hurt yourself, right?
And
Yeah.
I'm willing to wager that we're all a little different that way.
Yes.
You know, we each have our own system.
Yes.
But I don't live for my diet. I diet for my life. And so I'm eating for my health and pleasure. And the pleasure part is going to be in there too. So
Yes.
while I may, and I am moving pretty rapidly now, more and more over to, you know, a meat, you know, based diet, I have this funny feeling that there'll still come a point where I'll say, no, I want to have a little carb, and I'll do it.
Yeah. And as I understand, you know, a meat-based diet with a substantial amount of meat will end up being something that I'm going to embrace long term. I'm not going to go back to like, oh, just a little bit of beef, a couple, you know, I would get a third or a half pound burger or something at least a couple days a week typically, but it was in a junky format, and I'm eating much higher quality meat now, and it's not overcooked the way that some of that was, and all that kind of stuff, right?
And that's what Holly and I find ourselves doing. You know, we used to, I admit it, I have like you, I have an In-N-Out weakness. And so I love those hamburgers.
Mine was Carl's. It was even worse. I love the guacamole bacon thick burger with the bun, Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No more.
But Holly and I, we cook hamburger at home now, and we'll get the high fat hamburger. And like I say, we'll cook in butter. Maybe we should think of other things to cook it in.
Well, try it. And this is what I'm telling you, because it could, but just from you telling me your history, I'm thinking you're a person who a little bit of dairy might not even be your friend.
Right. Maybe.
Only because that's where I am, but I'm totally sympathetic with the
there have been
reluctance to give up dairy.
Because of my history, we have taken no dairy experiments, and it's what you're right. The inductive logic is sometimes hard because back at the two times I remember clearly, this was 15, 20 years ago, where I went off of dairy quite on purpose for a period of time. There could have been other factors that caused me to still have problems. So it's hard to separate those things out, but even eliminating dairy, I continue to have problems. And having some dairy doesn't appear to induce my problems.
Okay, so it takes dairy a few weeks to get out of your system.
See, that's...
And the other thing is it takes your gut about a month to remodel itself. So you've got to give it like a full month before you can judge any of this stuff. And that's what I'm understanding. Okay.
Yeah.
The things that you can reintroduce in addition to meat fairly safely typically would be a well-cooked, low oxalate, low fermentation vegetable or fruit. And that's where I'm going. And I just, you know, I had some beautiful strawberries around, and I was like, I got to have, you know, I'm going to just cut. And I went for a quarter cup just to be very, you know, conservative, and cook them. It's like, that's where I'm starting. That's my insertion point. Now, so then why, right? So but you think you're kind of with me where you would do this as a healing protocol.
Yes.
And you'd be totally grateful. You'd be nice. I mean, you'd be happy to kind of adjust your body over to having more quality meat in your diet as a way to keep yourself healthy and strong and healing.
Right.
And at the same time, you see value in the flora, as it were, out there that we can go ahead and eat and enjoy. Yes.
Yes. I think the general proposition is correct. Plants have these chemical defenses, and most of the plants that we eat have some pretty toxic stuff in there. And that's why we have to cook some of it, as we discussed before.
Yes.
But I think that let me put it this way. It's a terrible thing to say, but I think a little, what could be toxic in large amounts or if eaten regularly, is probably safe if you take it in little amounts irregularly.
Well, and potentially even helpful. So I've been
Right.
going back and forth on spinach.
Right.
With the
Oh,
people
I
who
love
talk,
spinach. I love spinach.
again, it was one of my go-to vegetables.
Right.
People talk about oxalates, and of oxalates, if you just look at oxalates, spinach is the most evil vegetable on the entire planet. It is just, it is off the charts, right? But at the same time, spinach is a very good source of some sulfur compound. Again, I'm just doing this rabbit hole, right? I'm like, I'm never going to have spinach again. And then I see this other article about there's this sulfur type compound in spinach that helps to maintain our gut microbiota, which is what I want to talk to you about in a second, James. And we're going to have our immigration
Okay.
parallel in a minute.
Yeah, I got to get to that immigration.
No, oh yeah, no, we're going to have some fun with that. Here's the thing, and I'm telling you about Michaela Peterson, and I'm following her journey. She was very sick. Joints replaced because, talk about autoimmune. My thyroid was being attacked by my immune system a little bit. I had these little nodules and they were watching them and they weren't doing too badly. And, maybe arguably they could put me on a little thyroid medication, but I didn't need it. And it was ridiculous. I got off it. That was where I was. I still have, I'm going to check my antibodies as part of this upcoming blood work. But, all her whole life, her body has been under attack by her own immune system. She's had 2 joints replaced and all this horribleness happened to her. Just excruciating pain and depression and anxiety and all this stuff, right? And then she goes on this meat diet. And again, you cannot argue with results. You
Right.
cannot argue with results. And of course, when you have these results, you want to proselytize. Like I'm proselytizing to you, James, to try this. But follow her journey. In the last couple days on Instagram, I saw 2 things that gave me pause, and particularly when I integrated it with one other thing she had said earlier. Okay. At one point in an interview a long time ago, she had said, I'm feeling so good. She says, I'm feeling so good, right? I'm feeling so good that I'm starting to toy with intermittent fasting. Okay. And if you're feeling so good, why change it? Right. And actually for me, I can't do any hardcore intermittent fasting. It's true. I actually don't eat for about 12 to 14 hours in a day. I don't eat, but I eat, within a 10 to 12 hour window, I eat 3 meals and I put space between them. I'm never hungry in between because Lord knows this meat fills you up, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm never hungry in between. Sometimes I'm hungry in the morning, but that's after, the 12, 14 hours. So that's good.
Right.
But otherwise in between that, I have to space it. Otherwise I can't eat enough. Maybe that'll change for me. Maybe I can get down to 2 meals a day and still take in enough calories.
Different. I'm totally different. I'm a 1 meal a day person.
Wow.
I've
Okay. So
gotten to
you
the
can
point
do that.
now. Yeah,
Okay,
I've gotten to the point now that if I have more than one, I feel awful and I gain weight and it's 1 meal a day.
Okay. Well, so maybe each person is different in that regard, right?
Mm-hmm.
Such that, like for instance, I believe because my digestive system was so run down after all the misdiagnoses and the, PPIs and the antibiotics and everything. And I hadn't eaten very much. I had to actually track my calories and see how little I was eating. Like, oh my God. So I had to ramp up. And part of it right now is like, yeah, I can eat 1.25 pounds of meat a day, but I have to do it in 3
Space it out. Yeah.
I have, otherwise
I'm not sure I could eat over 1 pound of meat in 1 meal anyway.
Yeah. And so imagine, but maybe I could do it in 2, right? If I built up to it, I could see that.
Right.
And I wouldn't want to try to just do it in 1. Part of eating too is you enjoy with your family or friends,
Exactly.
So you want to sit and eat a meal.
Oh yeah. That's what I try to do is make it kill one bird with 1 stone there. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, so Michaela's like, okay, I'm toying with intermittent fasting now.
Yeah.
And I wonder, it's like, why? Because it didn't sound like she was doing it for convenience, right? It sounded like she was doing it because she thought, oh, well, maybe I'll feel even better if I do this. And I take that as a signal that she wasn't feeling good. But here's the next one. And this one is a little more unequivocal to me in terms of she must not be feeling 100% perfect as like set on this as a long-term strategy in some way.
Right.
And it could be that maybe she's just not doing carnivore the right way. Like as far as I know, she's getting enough electrolytes, but maybe she needs some organ meat, or maybe she needs some of the things that are,
Right. Right.
I don't know, but I could tell you she didn't seem to be feeling exactly right. Why? There's a picture of her on Instagram where she's got an IV in her arm, and she's talking about supplement with something called NAD. And oh God, I haven't gone down that rabbit hole. Because in general, I'm just like, no, I don't want supplements. I want to get it as much as possible from my food. And anyway, why is she hooking herself up IV wise to something? Now on the one hand, you could say, okay, she has had a horrible autoimmune history. So maybe it's not any failing of the carnivore diet. It's just that she's a special case. And she does maybe need a supplement that we don't
her
all
unique
need.
history.
Right. She's got unique history. Or it could be a sign that if you do only carnivore over time, or if you don't do it the right way, study your Saladino and all of his intricacies, then you're going to still not feel perfect. You'll get that initial rush where you just feel great and you lose weight and you do all those great things. And then over time, maybe not as much. But anyway, there was that. And again, she's a special case. I'm not her doctor, certainly. And I'm not anybody's doctor. I'm not a doctor. I'm not even my own doctor very well. But
you may be a better doctor for yourself than most of your doctors, though.
No, I mean, some people have been so incredibly awesome in the medical field for me. And even where, like for instance, I had the ultrasound recently that maybe wasn't necessary, but it gave me peace of mind that my body was like adjusting to this way of eating better, and that I could just safely keep going forward and not worry. So, it's hard to say all the different ways that get you where you are. The other thing that she did the other day is she had, some Monday Musings post on Instagram. And in it, she talks about the carnivore diet as a method for healing, and that in the normal state of affairs, all of those oxalates and plant toxins and stuff, for normally healthy people with a healthy gut, that stuff, the bad stuff, will pass through your body and not do it damage. But it's in those of us who have probably had, with these autoimmune disorders, I don't know exactly to the extent you've been tested for leaky gut, that it passes through and into our body. And then it starts setting off autoimmune reactions into our body. And so she was saying that she's sort of admitting that in the normal healthy person with a healthy gut microbiome, that
a little of that stuff isn't going to hurt you.
Yeah, that the plant matter is not so
It'll
bad.
Probably safely pass through. Right.
Exactly. And so the hints are that, and she talked about a couple other things, that she was able to reintroduce fish, which she hadn't even been able to eat fish before.
Wow.
And now she can. And that there are on like gelatin capsules, or, there's little bits of cellulose and things that coat various, even cold remedies. She was talking about a cold remedy.
Right.
And that now she can take those without any kind of bad reaction. And these are indications that even her gut, as messed up as it must have been for her to have all the problems, has been healed over the long course of time. And that she's thinking along the lines of at least being able to reintroduce some things. Is she going to reintroduce plant matter? Stay tuned, right? Who knows?
Right.
She's still touting the diet, and I think with good reason, as a, good health intervention.
Yeah.
And so this is where we start to get into this microbiota thing, right? Because, do you want to give up on a kind of existence in which we have all of these, bacteria in our gut at a healthy level? I mean, this is what there are two alternative pictures of health as I see it going forward. One of them that potentially exists is 100% carnivore lifestyle, where, you keep all that toxic plant matter out of your system and everything else. You're just going to eat the meat and everything. And maybe if you do it right, you can have long-term total success, great performance, all the other things that they say. It seems possible to me that you can do that. They don't have long-term studies on it. It would be better if they had long-term studies on it. It seems possible that that's one way to go forward. And that's one choice. The other choice is what I'm calling more a reluctant carnivore path, where you try to use this as a powerful mode for healing whatever ails you, because there's a lot of things it appears could be healed by adopting this sort of diet. But then once you heal it, you try to work back toward another picture of perfect health, which doesn't mean, oh, you can eat whatever processed food crap that you want.
Eat all the sugar you want. Right?
No. And I think for nobody does it mean that.
Right.
I think for many of us, maybe more than would like to admit, it could be meaning giving up on grains and dairy.
Right.
And I'm not just saying that because like I want you to all suffer with me or anything. At least I think I'm not saying it for that reason.
Yeah. Right.
To what extent am I doing that? You can like go find a psychologist to analyze me. And see. But I do think that grains and dairy probably don't do people as much. And
I think we're realizing now just how much damage grains can do, and even some of the stuff in milk can do. So
but it could be that if we repopulated with a healthy microbiota, that you could even take a tiny bit of dairy or a little bit of grain and salt sometime, and not, I have not been for a very long time a kind of person who even buys a loaf of bread and brings it home. I would eat, little bits out at a restaurant or something.
Right.
It tastes so good.
Exactly. The nice warm bread.
Or my Starbucks pastry, right? It's like, I just, wow. But anyway, maybe you could, it's probably not a good idea, but in any event, there's so much you can enjoy. I was at Whole Foods the other day, and the produce section alone is just this beautiful thing to witness. All the variety and the flavors. And, for instance, I think I'm going to get garlic infused olive oil. For my meat, right?
Yeah. I love the flavor of garlic, right?
Yes.
But it's not hardcore carnivore. That's plant material.
It
in
is.
fact, right. So.
But I mean, is that going to be one of my introductions that I'm going to do?
Right.
Strawberries for a few days, and then what next? Maybe this coffee is going to be the next step.
Right.
One at a time. but the long-term picture, as I see it, could be, and this is actually what I am leaning towards, and follow me in this space. Let's try to repopulate these guys.
Right.
There are different ways to do it, strategies for it, and I'm looking at those. I can't really get there yet because I still have to get, some digestible plant matter going in my gut, but we can help that process along. And is there anything wrong with opting for a lifestyle in which we are bringing along with us a whole bunch of microbiota that live in harmony with us and help us to enjoy the variety of flora that exist out there in the world, such that, again, being aware of the ones that are more toxic and doing it on an individual basis, but trying to sort of maximize our enjoyment of food.
You're starting to develop a whole philosophy of nutrition.
That's what I'm telling you. I'm getting philosophical about this.
Definitely. Yeah.
So I see the microbiota as the immigrants.
Okay.
Now you get it.
I do get it now.
Do you understand it?
Of course. No. Introducing them into the system is actually good for the entire system. It's a healthy thing.
If you think this is one version of the optimal life, one that is worth, I'm getting my obleftivist credentials anew all over again. I was worried about that card of mine. I hadn't pulled out my obleftivist card for a long time. I'm pulling it out now. This is my obleftivist card, which is I see these microbiota insofar as they're not like crazy out of control. Like we're not going to let in the terrorists, right?
You don't want bad bacteria in, but your body is actually pretty good at screening that stuff if we let our body have the chance of doing it. But actually, we should have an open immigration policy when it comes to bacteria. Exactly. That's adorable. Yeah. No, I'm in favor of free immigration of biota. Microbiology should be introduced into the system freely. It's good for the system.
Yeah, I mean, the parallels are not exactly right, because we should definitely be gatekeepers of what we allow into
See,
our own
yeah,
body, right?
right.
So, if you are aware, like, what was it? There was some video of some guy, worshiping in the Middle East, and he goes and he licks the gate,
Oh,
like,
we
and
were
he doesn't
talking about
care
the
what happens.
spread. Yeah,
Of coronavirus,
there's the
right?
sacred spot for Muslims, and they literally lick, and everyone goes by. I mean, just as the pilgrims go by,
Yeah,
everyone
yeah,
licks the same
yeah,
metal thing,
yeah.
and
So
of course, disease is going to spread. Yeah,
yeah. So if you're aware of, some, like, I'm not going to go keep sitting in that old apartment that I had with the mold in the air conditioning
right,
system
right,
and be like, okay, whatever parasites want to come along for the ride. It's like, no, no, no.
right.
But in general, most of the things that exist out in nature, for example, and, you go
Well,
out
and
and,
you think about it, there's a little bit of a parallel here. They say that kids shouldn't be protected from all microbes, that actually playing in the dirt and the mud might be good for kids' immune system, because
yeah,
they introduce some of the bugs in the environment, and they
yeah,
develop a resistance to it. And
yes,
by being overly protective about that, you might not be doing your kid
yes,
any long-term health favor.
yes, yes.
So the point here is allow the bacteria in, right?
Yeah. So
Open
basically,
bacteria.
exactly. So I am reluctantly carnivore-ish in the sense that I have had to erect the wall.
Right.
It's my own body, because so it is not exactly like a country,
That's
right?
true. The
Okay.
analogy isn't,
Yeah.
it
Right.
breaks down.
Right.
This
No.
is
No. No.
private
Right.
property.
Yeah. 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 I mean, you could see at a state of war, you have to erect a wall or something, but
Right,
we're,
right.
this is not the normal state. So, you erect the wall, and it's as a temporary measure. And then as the state of war goes away, you start letting in people that are your friends.
Right.
And similarly, I'm going to be
The
trying to
velvet rope.
encourage.
Right. You've got the muscular guy in the velvet rope out in front of the nightclub, letting him in on a case by case basis.
Yeah, yeah, but not the ones with connections. We're talking the actually
Right.
good people, right?
Right.
That's stupid nightclubs in there. It's like, oh, you're wearing the short skirt. Come on in,
Right.
Oh, she's got big breasts. Yeah, let her in. No, it's not going to be this superficial, right? It's on merits.
Right.
But yeah, so I think that diversity in diet is an asset
Hmm.
if your body can tolerate it.
Right.
And like I said, I kudos to a carnivore diet. Having it available as an intervention is a beautiful thing. I will sing the praises of meat forever in the world. And I want to have Rob Wolf on and talk about the ethics of meat and all this
Yeah.
stuff. It is great, but I want, in addition, to be able to also enjoy a wide variety of things.
Yeah.
And I don't see anything wrong with that picture of a healthy gut through whom, even the oxalates go. Why? Because you have your friends, all those microbiota you're taking along for the ride, and they're handling all
They got
that
your
plant
back.
matter for you. And moreover, they not just handle it. So it's not like, oh, you're getting the taste and the crunch experience of a vegetable or a fruit or whatever. And it's not doing anything for you except for that experience or the calories. And that
Right.
otherwise it's just, being filtered through by
Right.
the microbiota, as I understand it, again, rabbit hole, Amy, the microbiota will release from the plant matter the beneficial chemicals for you.
Right.
Certain plant matter, the cost benefit of analysis may not make sense, and that
Makes
might be
sense at
true.
all. Right.
That might be true of spinach and
Right.
almonds for me forever, for example. Those are both very high oxalate items.
But even if the cost benefit analysis didn't work with a certain food that did give you pleasure, I think pleasure could come in and say, okay, a little bit. If it's not going to kill you and it's once in a while, okay.
I left chocolate off the list. I left chocolate off. So cocoa powder is high on the oxalate list.
Right.
The pleasure of chocolate is tremendous.
Yes.
I could see introducing very small amounts of chocolate in my future, even if it's high in oxalates.
Right. Right.
But with respect to almonds, for example, and respect to spinach, there are other options for the type of experience that I would want to get and the nutrients that I would want to get from those.
Right.
That in other types of plant matter that I
Yeah.
would go for. So this is my reluctantly carnivore approach, right?
Right.
And the reason, I'm both reluctant and enthusiastic at the same time. I got backed into it. I'm very happy that this is an option for me, a way station for me
Yeah.
for a while, because it is helping me heal. There's
Yeah.
just no questioning the results that I have.
Right.
I physically can look in the mirror and see the tissues that were raw healing.
Wow.
In addition to how I feel.
Wow.
Okay. So that you can't argue. At the
Yeah.
same time, I don't want to be in this place forever. I like the variety of foods and flavors. My little tiny bit of strawberry, boy, am I enjoying that.
Right. Right.
And particularly after I was braving the beef tallow and really trying to make myself like it. I can't do it.
But if you don't like it, you don't like it.
Yeah. So thoughts. Oh, so Christopher in the chat room says heal from what? I do deep dives into this in my personal thing. Basically, I had a long-term minor autoimmune condition that I was trying to ignore. And then it got a big bomb thrown into my digestive system last year between the stress of moving and then a whole bunch of mold in my air conditioning system was just an assault on my body. And I was in a weakened state. I was vulnerable to that junk because I hadn't taken care of business with respect to diet sooner. That's the way that I finally put the whole picture together. He says, Christopher says, I can argue if it makes you feel better now, but it may not be helping you longer term. And that's really the question that you have about, he's talking about the diet. In the chat room, Benjamin, he says, be careful before someone says you compared migrants to bacteria. I'm talking about your beneficial bacteria.
That's right. It was a positive analogy.
Yeah. Most of these bacteria in your gut are very beneficial. And even some of the ones that a lot of people like, for instance, Candida overgrowth. Candida is a normal part of our gut population. It's just when they're overgrown that they're bad. And there's all sorts of, anyway. No, I do not mean that migrants are a pathogenic bacteria. Never, ever. I hope somebody's going to quote me out of context and say something like that.
You just said immigrants are no better than dirty little germs.
I'm saying that I think a peaceful coexistence with a healthy diversity of microbiota is something worth striving for. And therefore, at the present moment, I am reluctantly carnivore-ish. And I actually may be what Saladino, Paul Saladino describes as carnivore-ish, somebody who does include some plant matter in their diet. Right. How much plant matter I want to have in my diet for long term, that remains to be seen. But I'd like to dig into a nice, tasty salad sometimes. Certain types of greens and lettuce and stuff.
I love salad. I really enjoy the taste of a good salad.
Yeah.
I know there's all these toxins in every single one of those plants, but
not every single one of them. So there's some lettuce that, not all lettuce is created equal.
Well, you were telling me that even just iceberg lettuce has.
Some people have trouble with iceberg, but iceberg is not the one that Saladino has on his sample meal plan in his book. He actually has a salad in a sample meal plan and in his carnivorish template.
Wow.
Yeah. So watch this space, right? I said, I'm doing the laboratory experiment myself. Maybe I will encourage you to try it for you because it sounds like it's something you could benefit from as well.
And
everybody
I
has
will
to
keep you posted. Yeah.
We can figure out what works. But for me, first insertion is strawberry. Strawberries were my reward, and that's the first one. I may as well, if I'm self-sufficient on the meat, then why can't I just choose a decent first place to start, like strawberries?
Right. Start with your favorite, right? Yeah.
It happened to be there, and it sounded so good, and I okay, just a little bit.
Just a little.
Yeah, and so far it seems to be fine. So so I'll continue with that. Limit meat for your heart, says Christopher in the. As far as I know, Christopher, you're going to have to. Yeah, I'm not a doctor. I'm not telling anybody what to do for themselves, But what I would encourage you to do is to also come down the rabbit hole with me and look at resources that you can get from Rob Wolf, Chris Kresser, Mark Saladino about whether or not meat is bad for your heart.
And I can just tell you, I see a cardiologist on a regular basis because of my background. And I can tell you that if you reduce the carbs and the sugar in your diet and increase the meat and fat in your diet, your cholesterol numbers will improve. Mine did. Just with an adjustment. I'm not even a full-on carnivore.
Wow.
Just adjusting a little bit, just taking the sugar out and a lot of carbs out, and then increasing your fat. You will notice when they do the cholesterol test, your bad cholesterol will not overtake the good cholesterol at all. In fact, it'll come down and be even.
Okay, well, I've heard anecdotal reports of people whose LDL has shot through the roof.
Right.
But then if you look at the ratios with triglycerides and blah, blah, blah,
that's the key.
It indicates insulin sensitivity, as they call it. And so as long as that LDL exists in an environment of insulin sensitivity, you are fine.
That's the key.
I'm still nonetheless curious.
But even LDL didn't go up as much as I would think it would have, right?
Okay.
It was astonished. I was actually astonished that the numbers didn't get really, really bad.
And some of this has to do with individual genetics and everything else. So we are all and unfortunately we're in this laboratory state. And I think the reason that the science hasn't been developed and proliferated more is, again, because of our sick care system, because our doctors are overburdened with bureaucracy. And so many of them naturally, and I completely understand, have lost the curiosity. They are taking government guidelines with respect to diet and protocols for just throwing pills at people, medications and stuff as a given. I've been told by both my functional medicine guy and my endocrinologist that Hashimoto's is just something that you expect that someday your thyroid's just going to give out and that's it.
Wow.
And it's just a matter of time.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm not settled with that. I'm not happy with that, especially if I get this indication that there are dietary interventions that I can do.
Right. If there's something we can do about it. Yeah.
So that's where I am. Christopher says almonds are awesome. Almonds may be awesome for some people. They're very high in oxalates, and I witnessed in my own person a reaction from almond. So I'll go for macadamia nuts, for example.
Right.
I can get
fat ratio. Speaking of heart, there is good evidence, empirical evidence that being developed that nuts do have a positive relation to good heart coronary outcomes. So
and it's because there's good fats and nutrients in the right kind of nuts. And so macadamias are on my short list of things that I would like to introduce, because also, again, it's not natural. It doesn't feel natural for me to eat all the meat that I'm eating.
Yeah.
I'm eating it because I'm following, by the way, Saladino's recommendation of eating a gram of protein from meat per pound of body weight. Now, for me, it's aspirational pound of body weight. So I'm going even more than my body weight.
Right.
But that's at least 1.25 pounds of 85/15 beef or equivalent per day.
Yeah.
The leaner stuff actually, I guess, has more protein per pound, but I'm choosing fattier stuff like you are. So, so I'm here. Oh yeah. Gut bacteria transplant is something you can do. You can do, they talk about this, get a gut bacteria transplant, a fecal transplant.
Some of it sounds weird. Yeah.
It does sound a little weird. And I've heard promising outcomes. I've heard the occasional anecdotal, like transplant mismatch, where somebody received something that didn't match with their system very well and didn't do so well. I think more of the outcomes are good. Is that what you've heard as well, James?
I have heard good outcomes from. In fact, I've spoken to people who've had it. When you you're sitting in a GI waiting room, talk to people. I've actually spoken to people who had good outcomes from that kind of transplant. But I guess you're right. It is like any other kind of transplant. It might, you might have an autoimmune reaction. It might not work with you. So
and the particular balance of bacteria in somebody else might not fit you very well. And so it might be even better to try to gradually introduce using vegetable matter and maybe a soil-based probiotic.
Right. That's the other
To
thing. There's certain kinds of soils that you can apparently digest, and that'll restore your good bacteria.
Yeah, so a soil-based is what I'm looking at. There
Yeah.
are people who, for instance, Norm Robillard, he's got his own garden, and he says, he's out there, he composts, does composting.
Yeah.
And he's got, I mean, he was a microbiologist by training, PhD and everything, and did a pile of research too. So, he's really out there in the weeds, but he's got like comparisons between the ideal gut microbiota, sort of diversity and everything, and the different species that exist in a compost pile. And so he just goes out there and actually gets in his compost pile.
Wow.
In about,
so it was good for us when we were kids to eat a little dirt.
Yeah. And so now what you can buy, if you don't have access to something like that, or you just don't have time, or you don't want to get out there, you can take a soil-based probiotic. So this is, like I said, further direction. But as I understand it, here again, rabbit hole, such a rabbit hole. Rob Wolf had tweeted something out some time ago, and it was a guy who went to go live with the Hazda. Hazda is this ancient tribe that still lives pretty much as they did live in this one area. And he goes and he lives with them, and he already had a healthy, like a very diverse, they had tested his biome, before and everything. And he was like one of the healthiest ones. And then it's like, well, go live with them because they have like the most diverse microbiota of anybody on the planet or something. So he goes out there and then he eats things for breakfast, some kind of plant that they have out there that's sort of like a coconut, but not, that they eat for breakfast. And he eats that. And then he eats, they got a porcupine, like they ate porcupine or something. They figure out how to do it, catch it and everything. And so he's eating with them, and he wasn't allowed to have like hand sanitizer. I mean, he had to be in the dirt with them and eat what they ate and everything. And sure enough, he comes back and he's got a more diverse microbiota. And then at the same time, he lost it quickly. Because why? He's not out there supporting it. So it's not just like, oh, you take a probiotic and then you go back to your carnivore diet.
No.
And
right.
So like if it's what is likely the case for me right now, as far as I hear from the gurus, again, I'm not a doctor. What is likely the case is if I'm eating my little bit of strawberry and I'm not getting sick, that I have something in there still, at some population level that's in there that's able to help me handle that. And that if I keep eating strawberries, I will encourage the proliferation of whatever it is that is, receptive to strawberries. But I would have to keep eating the strawberries. Like if I cut them out.
Makes sense.
Yeah, you have to feed it every so often.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The bacteria themselves eat certain things, and they have to be fed.
Yeah, so you have this symbiotic relationship with the little guys.
And that's what it is, a symbiotic relationship, right?
Yes. And we're human beings. So is it like, okay, well, we're less human if we admit that we have a symbiotic relationship with some gut bacteria? Am I like really pushing the ableftivist line here and saying, maybe it's good to have a symbiotic relationship with these little parasites in your gut?
Yeah, I think it definitely is good. Does that make us a leftist? Because we think that we should have a good relationship
I'm telling you,
with our bacteria?
My card is like, it's become a platinum card now. I got the platinum level of leftist card. Do I not?
You do.
Okay.
You do. You must be communist, anarcho-syndicalist of leftivism.
Yeah. So then people are having all kinds of talk back and forth about diet and stuff in the background. Bree says vegetables come with the correct bacteria to digest them on them, but we kill them all to help preserve them. Grow your own vegetables and don't wash them. That's an interesting way. Now, I've not heard Norm say that he doesn't wash them, but maybe for all of us who haven't been able to grow our own before, or didn't take the opportunity when we had the opportunity. I don't have a yard right now. Maybe the option would be you buy organic And maybe you give them a little bit of a superficial rinse, but you don't like go nuts about it. You have a little bit of dirt.
I'm. I think it almost feels like you're rolling the dice too, because how do you
You
know
are
what's
though. You are
how do
though.
you know what's on the plant, right?
Well, I guess you know a little more if it's in your own
In
yard.
your own yard, a little more. See, at least you know that the pesticides that you need to wash off some of those chemicals aren't being introduced. But do you really know all the, and I'm even going with the idea that most of the bacteria and most of the dirt there is going to be harmless or good for you. How do you know all of it is?
Well, and then there's another factor to think about, and this is something I might get into with Rob Wolf because he's starting to go down this rabbit trail. Soil now versus soil then. The soil is not the same anymore.
Interesting.
Do you see how complicated this damn
Yeah.
stuff
Oh,
gets?
yeah. Wow.
Okay. So
yeah.
It actually might be the case that a pathetic gut microbiome is a side effect of all the agricultural and things that have happened, and that repopulating in a sustainable way to get anything close back to, like Hazda or whatever that population is a project.
Right.
It's very hard to sustain.
Generally speaking, of course, the fear of pesticides has been overdone. I mean, not to say that there aren't some toxic pesticides that we need to worry about and stuff, but it's largely been overdone. But on the other hand, I would want the pesticide washed off my vegetable before I ate it.
So then someone says, I eat straight from the garden, worms and all. Eat the dirt. Okay.
Eat the dirt.
No, but I'm saying you may not want to go eat the dirt right now because No, it is
true. It may vary from place to place.
Anybody is rolling the dice.
And what we've done to our soil, right?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Even if you have the opportunity to get it from your own garden and just kind of leave the dirt on it and stuff, maybe that was not a great idea. That statistically, that's what helped people have this diverse gut, but maybe it's not optimal because any given person could get some sort of food poisoning from it.
Well, I just think of the sanitary conditions and what diseases were like in a sewer city, say, a large city before the introduction of sewers.
Right.
Just the introduction of automobiles into the city reduced the amount of horse feces on the road and dramatically brought down disease rates. With the introduction of the automobile, the death rates in cities declined precipitously just from the introduction of the car, because there wasn't any cow poop or horse poop on the roads anymore, which introduced insects and bacteria and all kinds of other things. So while I think there are good bacteria in the system, in the world, I think we may also be a little spoiled by civilization.
Well, I mean, spoiled in a way. So then we're going more down the rabbit hole, which is
that's true.
No, but I think it's a place that's worth being and thinking about, which is
right.
Is this a trade-off of modern civilization and having a cleaner, more reliable source of food, that we have less diversity in our gut and less ability to digest in a robust way the range of things? And instead of paying attention to that, what we've done is take pills.
Right. Well, just think about it. Boiling water.
Yeah.
Before Homo sapiens had fire, did we have boiled water at all? Did we boil things? Now, boiling things will kill most of the bacteria and stuff in there, right?
Right.
And so here we are, we boil all kinds of things, or at least we heat things to a point where just a little warm, that's what pasteurization is with milk, right? You just warm the milk a little bit and it kills the bacteria.
Yes.
So the fact that we can artificially warm things is not natural. And we didn't evolve, our guts didn't evolve for cooked, maybe evolved for cooked in the last million years, but it's only been like a million years that Homo sapiens have harnessed fire.
That is a pretty long time, but still, I see what you mean.
Oh, wink of an eye, really.
and so with each of these sorts of changes, we should expect, a change, a shift at least in the gut microbiota.
Right.
And so then the question will be, still is the goal that we want to have a diverse gut microbiota such that we can enjoy
Well, obviously,
flora in
if
some
it
way.
comes to like, if you know that there's something in the water that's going to kill you, boil the water, right?
Yes.
So there's a trade-off there that's really easy.
Yeah.
Now, in the process, we might be destroying all kinds of good bacteria that would have been in the water that would have helped our digestive system.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So watch this space, right? Where there's a lot more thinking to do. And I think, one thing that I've come to realize too, like I said, I'm more sensitive to everything, which is both good and bad.
Yeah.
Part of it is that, at least for myself, I'm realizing that you can't have a goal of 100% perfect digestion all the time.
Right.
That ends up being what you just desperately want after having huge problems. And
Yes.
and you associate every little twinge you feel
Boy,
with the worst thing that you've ever felt, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Boy, do I know that state of being. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I have this little twinge. Am I going to wind up in the hospital thinking I'm going to die again? Right.
Right.
No, you're probably not, if you're at least if you're just tinkering at the margins, right?
Right.
So tinker, and see. And so, like I say, I think it's an experiment. I would like to, again, like another thing I found out, I confirmed today actually, was I wasn't breastfed as a child, which I think also has and many of us at this age, we weren't breastfed. That has an effect on the diversity of your microbiome, most likely too, in your immune system.
Well, thank goodness for my mother, because she was told the same thing.
And she resisted.
She said, "No, I'm going to breastfeed each one of my babies for the first few months, and there's nothing you can stop. You can
tell your mom she is awesome."
I will.
No, serious, because she was bucking the trend back then.
They
thought they were outsmarting the human body by making these formulas. And I don't think they were. And that could be part of why my sisters and I were all in this Hashimoto's space.
Yeah, right.
Right. So integrations. So, given what you have, what do you do? And one of the things that I'm going to try to do, like I said, is go down this rabbit hole of trying to repopulate. I'm probably not going to go for the fecal transplant. I'm probably going to go for the more gradual approach, because I feel that if you gradually introduce, then you're going to be introducing the ones that are going to be more harmonious and have staying power and good for you in your system. And, if you end up making a mistake by taking the wrong probiotic, I guess you just starve the guys out again. And at least you can get back to this.
Right.
And you know that, if everything ever gets bad, you just eliminate something again and you start back and come back. And, Robillard, all these guys, they say that the gut bacteria is pretty darn resilient, that even though I've gone on a strict diet, there's probably a small population of number of species there. I'll find out more as I test more, but then you can start to feed them again and nurture them.
Yeah.
And
just a fascinating topic, isn't it?
Platinum ableftivist right here. Trying to
diamond platinum level.
arguing for a symbiotic relationship with microbiota. So I've sort of convinced you, at least for the length of this show, until you go think about it, and then you come back and argue with me next week.
No, I'm totally convinced. I'm on board. Really.
You're on board. Okay.
Yeah, no, your philosophy is a sound one.
Reluctantly carnivorish. That's what I call it. So we're going to call it reluctant carnivorism.
That's right. You may want to write some of this down. You may have an article or a book here for posterity.
I'm doing I'm going to be at least doing a blog post, and in the blog post I will have my various little affiliate links for the things that I've discovered that are helping me tweak along my way. And if you get any value from me sharing my experience, which you should not take as the right prescription for you, but see what part of it makes sense and go do your own rabbit hole discoveries. And I'll give you links to the good guys to go read for yourself. Think for yourself. But if you find value in what I do, you can either support directly the show. I'm on Patreon. I'm on Subscribestar. I'm at paypal.me/Amy Peikoff. Go ahead and is it paypal.me/ I think that's what it is. Find me and throw me any support. I appreciate it. I'm going to try to see if we can have a fun discussion with Rob Wolf, and I want to promote the work that he's doing. How do we save our healthcare system so that more people don't have to just be on the internet trying to be their own doctors and go down rabbit holes and stuff just to do some basic things to make themselves well. That would be nice too. So
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you, sir. This has been fun again.
Yeah, always.
And we'll talk some more next week. We're always here at 2 p.m. Oh, you know what? I just said that, right? Oh, we're always here. So next Friday, I cannot.
Oh.
I have to skip next Friday. So we'll talk. Maybe we can make it Thursday, or maybe it'll be the week after, but we'll talk and then we'll announce it to everybody.
Will do.
So thank you, everybody. If you're here watching live, please like. And if you've gotten value from this show, please share. And yeah, please share from, with the people who are going to bash me, like the hardcore people who are going to say that my opinion on carnivore is all washed up, and share whatever. That's fine. I could take it because I'm stronger. Why? Because I've been eating meat. Yeah. So we'll pick up this again next week, everybody. You take care.
Ciao.